Good evening. Let's let these program this evening, so I think we'll go ahead and get started with Officer White giving us our neighborhood crime report.
All right, good evening, everybody. I'll try to keep this sweet unless you guys have questions. I really just want to talk about two things that happened over the weekend. We did have a party on 500 block of Maryland. Can everybody hear me? Okay. 500 block of Maryland, in which there were some gunshots from that party. I've already talked to the residents of that address. I'm going to consider it good. I told them to monitor the address, calls for service, and things like that. Officers are aware of the address. If I don't hear anything, consider it handled. If not, I've got steps that I'm going to take in the near future to resolve that and involve OU and things like that, so that should be taken care of. The second incident was the same night, this past Saturday, about 1 o'clock in the morning, 1:30. There was a round fired from a white Chevy Impala in North Pennsylvania Avenue. I don't know the exact 100 blocks. Officers were canvassing the area very shortly after. They did find the car parked and there was a gun in the car. However, the emails went out. I had the people's information. The gentleman that called it in has contacted me. I'm going to wait for him to contact me back so that I can make a report with him and hopefully we can get something done about that, because I don't want that kind of stuff in the neighborhood. I can do a noise, I can do a larceny, but when it comes to gun shots, I think we can all agree we don't want to deal with that. Other than that, the larceny we've had is down significantly. 5 incidents in the last month, which is great. I know 0 would be the best, but probably not going to happen. Please lock your car doors and remove valuable items. Pretty much all 5 were left unlocked, and they just rummaged through. Does anybody have any questions for me? Go ahead.
So I live on that 500 block of Maryland. This is the 3rd weekend in a row that that same house has had out-of-control parties.
I pulled the call history, and I did see that.
And
probably a lot of my phone calls.
As well as mine.
Sorry?
I'm on the same block. We live next door. She's tours down. I'm 3 doors down.
Surprised I have. Do you guys use Nextdoor?
Yes.
You guys know that if you post on there, not only do I monitor it, the jump behind monitors as well, make sure that things I don't get, i.e. that in Colonial Place you have to add Larchmont. That's the neighborhood I follow because it has 2,000 people. It's just the largest community for me to follow. However, when I post things, I make sure I post it to everybody. I don't necessarily get that back from other communities on Nextdoor. So please add Larchmont when you do have issues, as it alerts me sooner than this. This is something I'm just finding out about. Other officers are already aware.
But we've no non-emergency phone calls.
Right.
Yeah, it has to be weekends.
No, and I understand that, but that's something I don't always go, well, let me just pull random houses out and look at their call history. I usually have officers or citizens tell me, this is a problem house. And I go, look at the call history, which is what I did today. It is an issue, but I wish I had known about it sooner. So no fault, please continue to call. Because I spoke to them today. If there are issues, I would like to be kept aware, because again, I'm going to handle it through Norfolk and through OU.
so this is a house being rented by an ODU student.
Yes.
Has anyone contacted ODU yet to let them know that they have a student that's out of control?
That's what I was talking about. I haven't yet, but I will.
And have y'all looked into charges that can be taken out? Has anyone brought the decibel meter out for city code
Everybody
violations?
brings up the decibel reader. Sounds great. Unfortunately, they're not calibrated. Please bring them up to somebody. I've asked about it. It's not something I have access to.
How do you get access to it?
It's like, as I stated, wherever it is, it's not even calibrated, things like that. You go to court with that charge, they're going to say, well, who trained you?
Right.
Comes out, no, it all comes out calibrated.
I'm a prosecutor, so I understand.
Okay, so no one's trained us, and I ask, again, I can ask for a lot. I don't know if you guys noticed, I don't have any bars or anything gold on me. Therefore, I am at the bottom. Now, I can ask for a lot. I usually get told no a lot.
So then who can we contact so that we can get a yes Because.
My Lieutenant Gibbs, if you email him, you know what, email me, I'll forward it to him. Because he clearly outranks me. And he might be able to get a guess where I have gotten email. Now that I'm aware of the issue, I am monitoring it, and I do have plans to address it.
Would you recommend getting in contact, like us getting in contact with the property owner? We were able to find that information through the city website.
That was something we were talking about. Sometimes it's, when I look at properties, it's LLC such and such. Is that what that is?
Well, I've tracked down that information through the city. It's Emmerdale Hawk, who lives on Northwood Loop. So I have drafted a letter detailing up through Saturday what has been going on at this house. It did not include the shots being fired.
Norfolk Airs? Is that where you got that information?
Yeah, the city assessor's office.
Okay.
And so I have drafted a letter, in essence, detailing what has happened and indicating that the neighborhood, the other occupants, are not agreeable to this behavior for signatures signed residents at Colonial Place so that we can send this to Mr. Hawk because there are potential civil remedies that can be pursued and certainly he doesn't want to have to deal with that. Perhaps he will enforce the noise compliance section of police.
There was a property in Lambert's Point. They were having parties and through you and ourselves, they're landlord big, so it can't happen. But please let me have that information if you would. Email it to me or give me a physical copy. And I would say, go ahead and do what you're going to do. Again, I'll make contact with the gentleman as well. And we'll see what we can do.
And all of this contact information is on the back of the.
Okay. Yeah.
Last question. You said that you do check next door. Okay, I didn't put anything on there before because I was under the impression, I guess maybe from a couple of years ago, that the Norfolk Police didn't monitor
We're not
the posts on
supposed
next
to,
door.
don't tell
Okay.
So I don't monitor it. I do have the app on my phone, and I know that you guys lose a lot of pets, so that's great. So I check it daily. It's one of those things I can't figure out how to turn off the alert. So I know when anybody needs. Last year I think it was a banana costume for Halloween, so I'm sure something like that will come again. But it doesn't bother me. I like to know ahead of time. Like I said, it's something I found out this weekend because I was at work, and I just happened to be. It was brought to my attention.
Okay.
So.
And it's actually nice to know that that's what we heard because we weren't. It sounded like it, but you know, there's a lot of fireworks that get shot off too, and people mistake the two all the time. And yeah, okay, thank you.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, you know, when you guys do post on Nextdoor, like you said, he monitors large amount, but I always try to capture what the essence is of the issues, and I email him or call him or whatever. So I try to keep him in the loop the best I can.
Yeah, no, and it's true. I do get a lot from the emails and stuff like that. So I also post from Colonial as well, but just keep that in mind. But if not, I do get your number.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Yes.
I'm a visitor from Colonial University. You should probably contact Civic Harris, is their name, I believe it is. And they are concerned about the image and how ODU is portrayed, especially.
Yes, I work with Abby Kindergarten quite often. She's in charge of all campus student housing. I pretty much meet with ODU once a month. So it is something that we typically do. But like I said,
Is it something happening on campus?
yes. Oh, yes. And honestly, and again, it is a lot easier for ODU to do things than it is in us sometimes. So again, I'm not saying that isn't something I'm doing. I've talked to this gentleman. If they're sending, if I give them a call at the address of both parties, we'll get a call. And I'm going to talk to Abby and have it taken care of.
I just have a quick question. When I saw the first incident, I believe it was one with the white Tahoe with the guns out the window.
Chevy.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. My simple question is, you know, I saw a lot of different mixed reviews on that. When something like that happens, whether it's gunfire in general or just like seeing a weapon out and about, what would be like the suggested immediate procedure? Like, would you
Call the police.
but like 911 or not?
Yeah.
Okay.
No.
Okay, just making sure.
When in doubt, just call 911.
I saw like a lot of mixed reviews, so I just wanted like for everyone in general, like what would be like the first thing we should do?
So no one knows if the Chicago was targeting someone or not?
Sorry.
If they were targeting someone specifically, or it was gang related, or?
Don't think it was gang related. I also don't think the incident at the house on Maryland was gang related either. It happens at a lot of college parties. You come up, you say, I want to come to your party. And I say, no, you can't come in. And next thing you know, we have gunshots. It happens frequently. I don't want to say every weekend, but it happens a lot around you. I was surprised to hear about it in Colonial place. It doesn't happen here in Colonial place, whereas I'm used to seeing reports and getting calls on Killam in Lambert's Point and even in Edgewater. But as far as that goes, no, I need to talk to the gentleman that emailed me and see, because again, I tell everyone this, and I'm sorry if I'm running long, is that I can't tell you how to feel. If that guy was shooting just outside the car, like up in the air, if you thought it was directed at you, who might have told you that he was shooting at you? So I'm waiting for him to get back to me and talk to him, find out the bottom of this, and either I can make a report for him or I can't. And again, if you guys could reach out to me, I will be happy to come out and make a report for you at a time that's convenient. Did I answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Does anybody else have a question? Yes, ma'am.
Mine is totally different.
Sure.
I live over here on Lucille,
Yes, ma'am.
and I guess it's been about 3 weeks ago. My next door neighbor called me and she said, what's going on? She was not at home. I said, I don't know. Didn't have a clue what she was talking about. She had been coming home and she said there were at least a dozen police cars and police out there with rifles, and turned her away, told her to leave and to leave now. And that they caught some guy that was right by my house and hers, but I don't have a clue what it was all about.
I don't have a great answer to that one. I actually got it in the mail, and I had to ask about that as well. I looked at the calls in the area, I looked at individual unit summaries. The only thing I found, and what I've turned up to, is there was a gentleman with a warrant in the area. Now, I don't know if that's what it was, but that's the only thing, even with dispatch helping look for what was going on at that time and day, is the warrant call was in that area around that time. That's what I'm attributing it to, though I do not know with 100% certainty.
Yeah.
I don't know what the warrant was for. I believe it was a misdemeanor, so I'm a little surprised by all this. But I don't know the extenuating circumstances around the rifle. By all means, it's alarming, rifles, et cetera, but I wasn't able to really find a lot about what happened with that. Why people were being told to go inside or being beat away. I wish I had a better answer. I did do research on it already. I couldn't find anything.
When she had told me, she said, well, I have 3 little children here, I need to get them to bed, and I just live over here. And they said, turn around and leave now. And it really frightened her daughter.
And I'm sure it is frightening. I'm sure it is. But it's probably for their safety.
Yeah.
I wish I had a better answer. I did. I spent a few hours looking at that incident, or suspected incident.
Yeah.
I know we had to find because it was a warrant in the area. So that's my best guess.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome. Does anybody else have anything? All right, sorry I took so much time, guys.
Our next speaker is from the city of Norfolk, and he's on the table. We'll be talking about a bike path. Mr. Paul Cormier.
Working me in on the agenda, I know this was kind of last minute. I was going to show you, we're in the process of applying for a grant from VDOT, and it's part of a larger plan we've got. I don't know if you've seen online, or have a copy of the city's bike and pedestrian plan for the entire city. One of the main corridors is going to be Granby Street, all the way from the waterfront to Ocean View. And one of the little issues that we're having to work around is the choke point of the business district here. The traffic is so fast and so dense on Granby as you approach the bridge here that if you're a casual or recreational type rider, it's not very appealing. So what we're trying to do is to find a workaround for the casual rider to be able to use that Granby corridor. And the thing we've come up with for the recommendation is, you'll see on the map in front of me, there is a path now that runs through Lafayette Park. It picks, and there is a bike lane that ends right at the entrance to the park. It's on Church Street, comes up to the entrance to the park, and then just abruptly stops. The sidewalk along the street there is fairly narrow and it's old, and we can't really do too much to improve that because of the roots of those beautiful old live oak trees there. So kind of what we're thinking about doing here in our grant application is to pick that bike lane up right after you cross the entrance to Lafayette Park, and kind of work through the park, mostly on the existing asphalt path. You know, there's a path that starts right here by the tennis courts and goes by the playground and kind of works its way out that way. It's a good path, but it's a little narrow for what we want to do. We're looking for a 10-foot wide multimodal path so that we can walk the dog, jog, ride a bike, and there's people using the park and use it as well. So that's why I'm here tonight, is just to show you that proposed path through the park, and just let you know that you will notice a lot of change. It's all going to be on grade. Most half of it will be just improving the existing path. The path that is there now has been there for some years and is starting to checker and get some root damage and things. So we'll resurface that, and then a small connector out to Church Street. Now, as far as the neighborhood goes, the next thing you see the line that goes through the neighborhood on Columbus, and that will connect up just short of the bridge on, was it 42nd? And what that's doing is that'll just give us a recreational workaround, so that if you've got a family, kids, you don't want them out on Granby trying to work through all that traffic. So we're going to move it, the park trail ends there at the parking lot there by the tennis courts, and then it'll move on down through the neighborhood. And the only thing we're looking at there right now, we haven't got a specific design, but it would probably be just those sharrows on the road. It's kind of a chevron with a bike symbol in it, and then maybe a sign or two that would say bike lane, so that motorists can notice that that's going to be a critical use bike lane. And that's pretty much what I had to brief you on tonight. This grant is due November, I believe. So we're as part of the application process, you have to say that you have briefed anyone that's going to be impacted or could be impacted. So that's kind of why I'm here tonight, just to leave these maps with you. My cell number, I'll read my card here. It's 374-1712. I'm up in the Public Works Transportation Office, City Hall. If anyone has any questions as we go through this, probably we won't know if we got the grant until January, maybe. Maybe June. My new budget year is in June. So we're in the very distant conceptual stage right now. So yes.
Just really quick question about the proposed pathway to one bike in Lafayette Park. I noticed on, I think it's Newport, part of Newport, to have like in the middle, the bike lane actually marked all the poles and stuff. Yes, you're probably not trying to do anything like that on the pathway.
Nope.
But I was wondering, are we going to put like at least some kind of, I'm just saying, because I've seen like everything from dogs to strollers to bikes, and I know some bicyclists are going 25, 30 miles an hour.
Right.
So are we gonna like separate part of the path off of markings or, and I'm just curious.
Yeah, we haven't to date, just because,
Right, you're just trying
it
to.
has, and the way this path is going to be, the plan is to have it on grade, so it won't be very grade variation, so even if you're on a bike, you come up on someone with a dog on a leash, you can easily leave the path and come back on.
Right.
So the intent is to have this, and you don't want anything too visible in the park. So we're trying to keep this as low impact, low visibility. We would just have maybe a sign up at the end of the Church Street bike lane that would just maybe with an arrow pointing, or just say Granby corridor this way. And yes.
Because nothing park is closed at dusk.
Yeah.
What is this going to do for those that are using the bicycle path at nighttime? What's that going to do?
The Elizabeth River Trail is another good trail system that we have that runs 9 miles, almost 10, through the city. And we frequently do, a lot of that is through various parks. And the position that we've taken in the internal policy right now is that as long as you're on the path, constructively using it, going from A to B, we're not harassing folks. That if you have a group of people that are hanging out, causing problems, or make a habit of hanging out, then it is by ordinance closed, and you can use the ordinance to move those folks along.
Anyone have any questions?
Again, my name is Paul Foran. I work in public works downtown City Hall. So any questions that come to you later, give us a call.
Thank you, sir.
I can leave a copy of this for those who haven't seen it, the master plan here. Thank you.
Okay, next on our agenda is the opportunity to hear from our 2 candidates for delegate in the 9th district. And we'll use the same format as we used last month. Each speaker will get 5 minutes to speak, and then we'll have questions.
First up is Terry Hurst.
Thank you, folks. My name is Terry Hurst. Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Colonial Place Riverview Civic League, for having us out. It's a great opportunity for us to share our ideas and what we think we can bring to Richmond forward. So thanks again. My name is Terry Hurst. I'm running for House of Delegates right here in the 89th District. A little bit about myself. First, my wife and I live just over the Granby Street Bridge in Belvedere, just a few blocks shy of DePaul Hospital. We have 6 children. We educate them in all levels of Norfolk Public Schools. Matter of fact, my wife and I are former employees of Norfolk Public Schools. Thank you for being here, Ms. Dog. The 5 oldest children went off to Virginia colleges and universities, and one of those is older than me, so we have 2 there right now. That's my alma mater. I received a degree in psychology and criminal justice. The youngest is a junior in high school, so it's been a pretty busy year for us, as you can imagine. They always kept us busy, though. When they were younger, I was coach and manager of their Little League teams over at Azalea Little League. I was also treasurer of the PTA over at Sherwood Forest Elementary. And of course, we had them involved in rec soccer and Army self-defense classes, you name it. We kept them busy, they kept us busy. Pretty fair trade. I came to Norfolk in 1988 with the Navy. That was the year I turned 20. I had just returned from a 16-month deployment on 10 different ships to the North Atlantic, the Mediterranean, and the Persian Gulf. I was actually a Stinger anti-terrorist, anti-aircraft missile gunner, which is a really heavy job for a young 18-year-old kid right out of high school, you know. Grows you up pretty quick. Since then, I've worked in manufacturing, wholesale, retail, communications, healthcare. These days, I'm director of data management and analytics on multiple federal contracts with the same behavioral healthcare company I've been at for 13 years. And I'm running for House of Delegates to provide and bring that experience as a veteran, as a father, as a 30-year employee of the Hampton Roads area to Richmond for you to provide credible, competent, and honest representation with scandal-free transparency and the well-managed government that Norfolk and Virginia deserves. Now, as your delegate, I will oppose government overreach into your personal freedoms. I will promote economic opportunities for small businesses and families. And I will work passionately to improve your quality of life. Now, for me, government spending has spiraled out of control, so much so that oftentimes our priorities go underfunded, sometimes unfunded. So the first order of business for me when I get to Richmond will be to place a lockbox on public education funds to keep them from being misallocated or reallocated, which means no more raiding the state lottery fund. It also means placing a lockbox so in a way that if we were to provide new calculations behind SOQ funding, one of the things I would do is propose legislation that actually changes the calculus, right? Instead of only those kids that met benchmark and that school system getting credit for that, what about the teacher that gets a child here and never gets them to benchmark but gets them here? They should get credit for that, right? So we can improve that. And the other piece of legislation on education would be to actually propose legislation that directs all of the state sales and use tax back to local school systems, above and beyond SOQ funding, and with no strings attached. You see, if we stop spending money on the things that we don't need, we'll have more money for the things that we do need, like increased access to vocational and technical programs to reduce and eliminate the cycle of poverty. Another big thing that's important for us, as you can tell in this area, flooding and sea level rise. And how do we mitigate that, right? Now, I believe with billions of dollars of projects that we need to find and create an accurate way of scoring those projects so that we don't waste limited dollars, right? So one thing that I will just propose legislation that directs Virginia Modeling and Simulation Center to work with localities and agencies to develop a unified framework for scoring these projects, much like we use SmartScale for evaluating road improvement projects, right? I think we also need to address the monopoly that is Dominion Energy. Currently, electric users can only break even on their bill if they're using solar. I would propose legislation that would reform Virginia's net metering laws and make it possible for residences and businesses with solar panels to sell energy back to the grid. Green energy sold back to the grid. That's a great way, right? And they could even sell it to their neighbors and adjoining businesses. And finally, since we're a little short on time, I need to get wrapping up here. Criminal justice reform. We really need to address that. We need to enhance community policing. We need to restore the rights of those nonviolent offenders who have paid their debt to society. We need to bring some desperately needed leadership to ending the school-to-prison pipeline. My own children were victims of this. The rampant and massive overuse of out-of-school suspension. What if we introduce restorative justice, right? And lastly, ending the failed war on drugs. What if all those decades, I was a Ronnie and Nancy kid too, I remember to say no, right? But we spent trillions of dollars over 3 decades attacking the supply side of this problem. What if we showed people that have addiction that your government really cares and treat it as the health issue that it is instead of a target on your back as a criminal issue, right? There's a lot of good things that we need to do. These are just some of them. If you'd like to know more about me and where I stand on other issues, you can visit my website, terryhurst.com. It's on the cards that I handed out earlier. And again, my name is Terry Hurst. I'm running for House of Delegates in the 89th District. I'm not a dynasty candidate, but I am a veteran, a father, and a 30-year employee of Hampton Roads. I will bring that experience to Richmond for you, and I ask for your vote in November. And thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. How you doing? My name is Gerald Jones. I go by Jay. That's what my friends call me, so we're all friends. You're going to call me Jay tonight as well. It is a pleasure to be back at this Civic League. I've seen a lot of familiar faces, and I met some new ones tonight. It's very exciting for me to be here. Thank you guys for allowing us the opportunity to come back. I'm going to start a little bit with who I am, and then I'll get into why I'm running and what I think we can do in the House of Delegates. For me, my story starts about 100 years ago. My grandfather, Hillary Jones, was born in the Huntersville neighborhood just up the street in 1923. He loved this city. He left for college and law school and came back and became very involved in the civil rights movement. He had 2 of his children integrated in elementary school here in town. He was appointed to the school board and then the State Board of Education, the first black person to ever achieve that feat. And his example guides me every single day. You might recognize my name because my father, Gerald Jones, held the seat from 1988 to 2002. I think I'm a little bit younger and a little bit skinnier. Luckily, I look like my mother. I'm exceedingly proud of my family. They love this city and they gave it back because they felt at home here in Norfolk, despite all the things that they had to deal with as people of color. And I'm taking that example and I hope to do the same thing. I grew up in the Ghent section of town, and I went to the College of William & Mary for undergrad on a full academic scholarship. Then I went to the University of Virginia for law school, where I graduated a couple of years ago. And I'm a practicing attorney here in Norfolk. I'm a partner of Bishop Martindale. If you guys have any legal needs, please come see me afterward. But we're running for the House of Delegates because I believe that we need young, dynamic, intelligent leadership. Since I've been back, I've gotten involved in several organizations here in town, the most important of which to me is the Boys and Girls Club of Southeast Virginia. I'm on the board of that group, and we do so much work with children, working with them after school and giving them the resources and guidance they need. I'm also on the board of the Elizabeth River Trail Foundation. Very interested in making sure that we have other ways to move around here in our city. But we want to make sure we create opportunity for everyone in Norfolk and in Virginia. We know that some people don't start at the same level, but we can do something about that. The issue that I hear all the time as we go around the 89th district is about education. People say, well, what are you going to do about our school system? How are you going to help? It's a little bit broken. And I say I agree with you. And there are things that we can do at the state level to address our education system here in the Commonwealth of Virginia, starting with raising our teacher pay and rewarding those folks who are investing in our children, and making sure that they are paid what they deserve for doing the hardest thing in our society. We also want to expand access to pre-K for all students here at Virginia at no cost. That is really important to me. I believe that if we invest in our children at an early age, we're going to get them on a level where they don't fall behind and the gap starts to expand as they get older. We also want to make sure we expand access to technical and vocational training at all levels. The other issue that I hear a lot about is transportation. People say, gosh, can't get around. What's going on with our highways? What's going on with our infrastructure? I think we had a good start 4 years ago with the transportation bill, and now you see the high-rise bridge being expanded, 64, but we can do more. We've got to expand light rail. That is really important to me as a millennial. We look for places where we want to get around, and that's going to attract young people and businesses and say, hey, we want to come here. You guys have multimodal transportation. We want to expand bike lanes. We want to make sure that we are giving all people access to move around the city. I don't know the last time you guys were on the bus, but it takes about 3 hours to get across town here in Norfolk, Virginia, and that's far too long. We've got to work on making sure that we expand our access to transportation for all folks. The other issue, and to me this is very important, is sea level rise. I believe it is the existential threat here in Norfolk and here in this region to make sure that as we go forward as a coastal community, we remain viable. The water is our biggest asset. We have the Port of Virginia. We have the naval base. We have the beach. People come here because of our water. But it is getting to a point where it is also becoming our biggest liability. Every time it rains, it floods. Every time I see the news and I see these big hurricanes, I think that could be us, we could be next. And we've got to figure out what we're going to do to make sure we mitigate this recurrent coastal flooding and the rise of sea level. There are billions of dollars in grants out there. I think that we are seeing some strong leadership at the federal level from our United States Senators, Mark Warner and Tim Kaine, but it takes a threefold approach in cooperation with the federal government, the state government, and the localities. I am so encouraged by what we're doing at the city council level to make sure that we are getting the grant funding and taking all of the above approach. Because we can't kick this can down the road any longer. I want to have my children and grandchildren grow up in this community just like I did, to enjoy it the same way that I did. And that to me has got to be one of our biggest priorities. So I'll wrap this up because I know we only have a few minutes left. We want to make sure that this district gets the dynamic, intelligent leadership that it deserves. That it has a voice that speaks for all people and not just some. It is a sprawling, big, broad district. I have traveled many miles over the last 7 months as we have gone knocking on doors. We've knocked about 20,000 doors at this point, made about 10,000 phone calls. We get a lot of different people. We are the most diverse district in the state. We get black and white, old and young, wealthy and working class, gay and straight. And we want someone who's going to represent all of us and not just some. And I believe I'm that person who can take this energy that Norfolk has to Richmond to make sure that we are getting the resources that we deserve, that we need, because we are one of the most important functions of this state. Most of the economic stuff comes from Washington, but what it doesn't comes from here. It comes through the port, it comes from all of our economic dollars. We need someone who's going to focus on that and make sure we're taking Virginia into the next step in the new economy. So we've got a really important election here in just a little under a month. We've got the 3 statewide offices. I'm supporting my friend Ralph Northam for governor and Justin Fairfax, lieutenant governor, and Mark Herring for attorney general. We've got all 100 seats open in the House of Delegates. These elections are really important, and so we want to make sure that everybody comes out and vote, that we make sure that we all exercise our voice, and I'm asking for your support that day because I think we can take the 89th district into a wonderful and fantastic direction together. So I want to thank you for your time. I'm looking forward to your questions, and again, I'm Jay Jones, and I'm asking for your vote on November 7th, so thank you very much.
All right, who has a question for our delegate candidates?
Yeah, I'd like to bring up something. About this time last year, there was a map that appeared in the pilot showing areas that were subject to coastal flooding. And said, my house is on Beach Avenue.
I know.
And I've got 47 years experience of flooding on Beach Avenue. In that map, it was in color. The area right next to the water roughly followed the water line. Some places it wasn't as wide as others. The flooding went deeper or narrower. The article said that the city, of course, would be involved in meeting the need there, except for the fact that the yellow zone, they would probably have to not do anything because it's too difficult. Well, the only thing they might do is some unnamed transportation issues. I don't know what the hell that is, frankly. I look at it differently. I look at the coastal flooding that we've got here in the same way I look at the fire department and the police department. People all over the city are going to have all walks of life are threatened by this flooding. It's coming, I believe. So I think people downtown think, well, we can set aside and not do anything for these people in the yellow zone. To me, if they're running for office, you got to help the people that need it, and the people have been having flooding for years. It didn't start in the 2000s. It started back in the 80s and 90s. So please adopt the attitude that help for people that are affected by coastal flooding. It's like a fire department. You get a fire over here, the department responds. You get a fire over there, it's the same thing with police. It's a city service. They should apply equally to everybody. We all pay taxes. And in the beginning, some of us are going to need it earlier than others. But in the long run, it's going to affect everybody. And my house, I think it's built at the turn of the century. It's probably good for 10, 15 years. If you're looking at the most pessimistic thoughts about flooding. But I can't get off Beach Avenue to go anywhere. The infrastructure the city controls is the streets, and they haven't raised the street anywhere that I know of. And they're not talking about raising streets, but they should be.
Well, and I'll respond because I get what you're saying. I am 100% with you. I've seen this over my lifetime where it's gone from a problem that nobody wanted to talk about to something that people are now just starting to address. But I believe that this is the existential threat to our community here as a coastal community. You know why the water goes where it goes. It's because we are built on top of these creeks and on top of these muddy areas, right? So the water's going to come up, right? We know that. So I've been really encouraged by what City Council has started to do. They said, look, we can have the water come up and over and create spillways to divert the water where we want it to go. We can put the infrastructure in place in the water with tide walls and these storm surge barriers. We've got to take an all the above approach. This district, like I said, is really diverse. The St. Paul's Project community floods every time. And those children can't get to school. We've got to take an approach, like you said, where everybody's getting attention. People don't want to come here anymore because it's too expensive to buy a home. The flood insurance is just too much. I'm sure you saw the article in the New York Times about Larchmont. When we're getting national press about that, that's not a good thing. Okay, you want to have us in the newspaper saying Amazon's coming here or Facebook's coming here. But we're in there about coastal flooding. So for me, I support everything that we're trying to do to make sure that we can mitigate against this stuff. Senator Linwood Lewis put in a bill last session to create a cabinet position in the Virginia state government that would be dedicated solely to recurrent coastal flooding. It's not funded, unfortunately, but if we get some good Democrats in office, I think we can fund it. And that person will be dedicated just to getting this federal and state money that's out there that can help us move forward. Because we don't have a choice. We can't kick this can down the road any longer. And I'm with you on that, Jack. So you know I'll be fighting for you.
Well, I don't want to dominate the meeting. But first, you mentioned prioritizing these projects. One of the best things I've heard, I worked for the Corps of Engineers for 23 years, and the city has hired the Corps of Engineers to do the studies on the entrance to Lafayette River. I'm really heartened by that they know how to prioritize benefit cost ratios is what they've been doing for longer than the United States been in existence. So they know how to do the prioritizing. Problem is how much politics gets into the final decisions.
You know where I stand on this issue, and you know that, I believe that we have to take an all of the above approach because we need all the help that we can get. Because if we don't, we're going to fall behind economically, and it's not a good thing, right? And culturally, we love living by the water, and no one's going anywhere. Are you going to move? Exactly. You're not moving. I don't want to move, and no one else wants to move. So we got to figure out what we're going to do as soon as
my age, my wife's going to put me in a wheelbarrow.
You let me know, because I'll buy the house at the price.
My spot over in the mausoleum is within walking distance.
Hopefully you can get there if it floods.
It's also on the water, by the way.
I think this gentleman has a question.
This actually is for, I know you both touched on school districts and government spending. But my question is, I just with the news, with politics, and just everything I've been seeing lately, my biggest question is, and I'm really happy that y'all are really focusing on school districts because, the courthouse is made out of real Mount Marble, and then you look across the street and that building is centuries old. I've been in that building at Jimmy John's before, and it was just, it looked dirty. That's how old it was. So my question is not so much about spending for, schools and stuff, but what is your stance on government spending for themselves? You see Congress, they get 5 vacations a year. You see, and even just on the lowest levels of, politicians and stuff, y'all get paid so much, and I don't mind paying my taxes, I don't mind paying my taxes. I get taxed every day where I work. I don't mind it. But my question is, how much are y'all going to try and work? Are y'all not working on the school districts themselves? Or are you also trying to work on not paying yourselves more, but spending more of it on community? Because the average politician makes more than most people in this area. And so my question is, what are you all focused? Are y'all going to focus on that channel? Both of you.
Well, I'll jump on that one real quick. House of Delegates, no one's going to get rich there. We make about, $17,000 a year, if that. That's so no one's going to House of Delegates because it's a great financial boon for them. You really got to have your community at heart if you're even going to think about doing it. Jay will probably tell you we both worn out a few pairs of shoes trying to do this.
Sure.
And that's a good thing because we've learned a lot about where people stand, what's important. And as you heard me mention, my top 3 priorities in government are education, transportation, and public safety. Your house is a public safety issue, The last thing you need to do is find yourself crawling into the attic and forgetting to bring a chainsaw, and you're going to get trapped in there like we heard from people out of Hurricane Harvey, right? And other places where these horrible tragedies occur. Education, public safety, transportation. When we've got funds that are created at the state level to attract businesses, and you're greasing the palms of different businesses with dollars that should have been prioritized to one of my top 3 areas, that's where I've got a problem. You're going to find, when I make it to Richmond, I'll be looking for a lot of areas where crony capitalism is snuck into our dollar bill structure. And that money's going to be reallocated to where it should be first. Until those top 3 priorities are funded, everything else is fair game. So I'll turn that back over to Jay.
Yeah, we don't make a lot of money doing this. It's not about the money for me. It's certainly about public service. I come from a family where that's sort of, we want to get back to the city that we love. Now, I will say Virginia has a balanced budget amendment, so we don't go into these wild spending sprees that other states have to deal with. We do have budget deficits like every other state because sometimes we don't collect as much as we want. But Virginia certainly has exercised an incredible amount of fiscal restraint. And I will say that the last couple of times that Virginia has had budget surpluses, Democrats have been in office. The economy does very well, and Democrats are putting forth our business principles and making sure that everybody is moving up, right? A rising tide lifts all boats, to borrow right here by the water. And so that's what I'll be focused on, right? I can't even remember the last time the House of Delegates or the General Assembly has voted to raise their salaries. Virginia also, we're really good about campaign finance. We have to report everything. You can go online and see who's giving me money, who's giving my opponent money. You can question us on that. You can ask these questions. We have a disclosure form of campaign finance. So we are very transparent here in Virginia. I'm very proud of that. And so you'll know what I'm doing. I'm very active on social media. We answer all of our emails and phone calls. And if you don't, you can talk about that. But, so I hope that, you know, if elected, you'll feel comfortable asking me all these questions personally. I can give you my cell phone after this too.
Well, sorry about that. One more quick question.
Sure.
I just wanted to state, you know, I grew up in Maryland and I moved here about 8 years ago.
We're glad you're here.
But
We're glad you're here.
definitely. My biggest issue, I guess, with the public school system is that even in Maryland, well, Maryland is really bad. It's very, but especially here, because a lot of people my age too are completely careless about politics. And I just think that notifications to the younger crowd and just education is also a very important thing, not on politics, and notifying people, especially younger like us, to vote. Because for me, honestly, I wouldn't have known about the Civic League if it wasn't for Grid. And I don't know a lot of stuff because, you know, I watch the news, that's it. I don't really get a lot of, so I think that would be like a strong issue for y'all to definitely check out. Sure. Thank you.
Mr. Hirsch, you mentioned in your presentation that you want to keep the government out of our lives. Can you describe what in your mind at least, what that means, what that includes?
Well, I think what I stated specifically is that I would oppose government overreach into your personal freedoms. And so, in that way, I would like to make sure that it's clear that, in my opinion, there's an absolute purpose for a certain amount of government in our lives. And I think our founding fathers delineated very clearly in our Constitution. The states created the federal government for a good reason. We need to be able to defend ourselves, right? And the states themselves are certain governments for good purposes, because if it was just left to human beings' voluntary nature, we've seen what's happened when humans don't rise to that altruistic level that's needed for civilized society. So there is absolutely reasons and purposes for the government to exist. And I think I've made it fairly clear that I do support some areas that maybe some more conservative folks don't necessarily support, you know, education. I believe public school system, we put our children through all levels of Norfolk public schools. And they're going to public universities. That's a pretty strong testament for needing the government involved in our lives. Transportation. What would happen if we had no government to help us take care of our roads? I think we've seen histories in the past where people created private roads, and maybe they had public-private partnerships, and maybe they signed those with foreign entities like Macquarie, and decided once we've paid for that tunnel, they're going to make $58 billion on toll collections. Now, I'm a victim of toll collections. I'll call it a scam down here, if you will. Anyone gotten stuff like I've gotten? My kid took my car, said, "Can I take the car to go visit Grandma and Grandpa and stuff like that?" I was like, "Sure." Now, I know I've got a low balance on my Easy Pass, but I wasn't planning on going to an Easy Pass gate anytime soon. Forgot all about it. He went through low balance. Ding, he gets something in the mail. Now, he's 19 years old. He's at Old Dominion University. He thinks he's a grown-up now, and he's going to take care of stuff. Great. He gets a piece of mail and forgets to take care of some stuff. Last October, I went to renew my license plate, and they said, "No, you can't do that." And I'm down here at the DMV Select, right here at City Hall, right? That's great, because usually when there's a problem on DMV, if you're at the DMV Select at City Hall, you can turn right around and go to the treasurer's office and take care of the problem. Well, I would go over there and take care of the problem. They said, "No, you have a hold on your account." I was like, "Yes, I'd like to pay for the hold." "You can't pay for that hold here." "I can't pay for that hold here. Why not?" "No, that's because Elizabeth River Crossings has a lien on your license plate renewal." Now, I venture to say that the Virginian pilots would love to have that option. Anytime someone hasn't paid for their subscription, they can now hold their license plate hostage, right? That's the type of thing where I'm talking about crony capitalism sneaks in. We need to get those types of things out. There's places for private partnerships and private entity and private capitalism to work, but places like roads, education, public safety, we definitely need government in place in certain ways, but we need to do it right, and we need to make sure that we're good stewards of the money that was taxed so that it can be used for those important purposes. I hope that answers your question.
Usually in the House of Delegates, well, I'm not along the place. Usually in the House of Delegates, every vote seems to go down party lines these days. So it's clear that you're a Democrat, Jay, because you've been saying that. But Mr. Hurst, which party are you affiliated with?
I am the Libertarian nominee for the AEI. And my hope, as far as party lines, since there may not be a whole party line, depends on how many, if any, Libertarians get elected besides, right? I would venture to say that that would actually change the whole calculus of how business is done in Richmond, because when they have one or more third-party votes to worry about, now they really have to start talking about how do you build bridges, how do we build coalitions, how do we collaborate. Someone asked me, who am I going to caucus with? Well, obviously, if there's no other libertarians, I'm going to have to pick someone other than libertarians, right? But the bottom line is I'll still be voting on certain issues. And if it's on an issue that I've prioritized on my website or on these cards, I'll probably be voting with the Democrats. And if it's something that's on some other line that's not necessarily supported by the Democrats, but it's in keeping with where I stated a stance, I might vote with the Republicans. That's the beauty of being a libertarian. A lot of people say, well, then you're really just an independent. That's fine. I can live with either type.
So how about the women's health issues?
Women's health issues, your body, your choice. I think it's not the government's place to tell you how to live your life or what to do with your body.
I would have to agree. Look, Democrats, we have supported women's health issues for a long time. I think it is silly when you see people trying to take access to health care away, whether it be contraception or anything like that. I'm happy to be endorsed by Planned Parenthood in my campaign for the House of Delegates, so hopefully my stance on women's issues should be very clear. But I support Governor McAuliffe and all that he's done to try to make sure that the Republican-led House of Delegates does not attack women's issues here in the Commonwealth of Virginia, because those positions, they emanate outward. People see how we conduct ourselves. I mean, I'm sure you guys all saw how North Carolina was reeling from House Bill 2, the transgender issue. It's not just stuff like that. It's women's health issues and civil rights issues and how you're treating people. Here in Virginia, we're open and inclusive, and we want to make sure that everybody knows that.
So one more quick question, actually, now that she mentioned that. What is, this is for both of you, what is your view on updating the LGBT education and just all around community and public schools? I mean, I know, like, for example, North Carolina, if I'm correct, they still have it that transgenders, it's a whole mess down there. My question is, like, how are y'all going to be working towards trying to make everything more friendly, like coexistent? Because I know LGBT, especially with the T part, transgender, it's definitely going to be harder for schools. So my question is, what are your plans for that? Or do you have plans to help out that?
Sure. I have gone on record saying one of the bills that I would hope to introduce this session would be to expand the Virginia Human Rights Act to include the LGBTQ community as a protected class here in Virginia. It's very important to me. I have family members who are part of that community, and it pains me to see them treated differently for no reason, and it seems very foolish to me. And that has, again, economic issues that people can see, and businesses don't want to come here. They don't want to set up shop. Families don't want to come to communities that aren't inclusive. I think Norfolk, especially, I'm very proud of the community that we are, the strength that we have, and how inclusive and open we are. I think that is a testament to our strength and our resolve. And so I hope that making sure that all of Virginia thinks that way and sort of acts in a way that is up to 2017. I mean, we're still talking about these things, and you see the hate and the fear that's being pushed through the country right now, and that's not where we want to go. That's not who we are. And so I'll do everything I can to make sure that the LGBTQ community is heard and represented and is protected.
When it comes to special populations of people, again, I think there's a real danger when you get certain people in power at the higher levels of government that can have their will as really seemingly a minority in some ways, even though we know they represent a large land mass or a larger area. We've seen just this past year that the Virginia Senate passed a really strong bill that would have expanded on the affirmative defense for intractable epilepsy if you possess cannabis. They expanded it to like 12 additional inmates. That was great. The Senate did that. But what happened in the House of Delegates? They shot it down, right? So this is what I'm talking about when you get certain people in power that may be swayed by certain factions, and that can be risky at the federal level and at the state level. I believe, as many have said before, and I agree with, politics is local, right? If at all possible, let people govern themselves at the most local level. And that's why it's great that Virginia is a Dillon Rule state, because the state can step in if a locality is getting out of step, right? But I think what's good for Winchester Public Schools isn't necessarily what's good for Norfolk Public Schools. And what's good for Chesapeake Public Schools is not necessarily what's best for Fairfax. So there may be room to keep certain things at the local level. That way, if Norfolk says, hey, we want to enhance our curriculum so we can talk about LGBT issues and really enhance it, honestly, that's a great idea, you know? And that's probably going to attract more people to your city because, wow, if I'm deciding where I'm going to set up shop and if I'm deciding where I'm going to settle my family, I might check out the schools, and all these schools over here are really seemingly archaic in their curriculum, but wow, look at the avant-garde of Norfolk and some of the more urban areas. So if that was set at the state level, you're kind of hamstrung. If you leave that more at the local level and leave it to the school boards to determine their curriculum in certain areas, it's a boon for the locals.
Any other questions?
Mr. Hirsch, you mentioned the war on drugs.
Yes, sir.
What do you really mean by that? They're saying you focus on the health effects of using drugs, would you then recommend legalizing all drugs?
I think long-term, that's a larger conversation to discuss long-term. I think in the immediate right now, we know that there's a certain targeting that's happening just because people are possessing cannabis. We see people on YouTube and on TV where the police are pulling their guns just because they smelled marijuana. How is it that smelling marijuana gives you the right to pull a gun on someone? Now we can look at examples like Portugal and Uruguay and other areas where we have a longer trend to see what has decriminalization done, right? But we see in our own states now valid statistics that are coming up out of the University of New Mexico, University of Georgia within the last week, showing that when a cannabis dispensary is set up, that opioid overdose and opioid death is reducing, right? So this is great that we're actually starting to see some real statistics coming out of America. My immediate focus would be in line with what Virginia Normal is on board, and that's National Organization for National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Law. And their current legislative support, and I'm behind that, is for decriminalization, let's call them fines and not crimes. And for medical cannabis, let the doctor decide. Because last year's debacle of, well, we expanded it to 12, but the House of Delegates said no, let's just let the doctor decide. I think if we start there, then we can see what effect that has had and where we need to move from there. But I think it's very premature for anyone to say, I'm all for this, and that's jumping from A to Z. I think there's a much more pragmatic approach. And when it comes to opposing government overreach and your personal freedoms, it definitely needs to be done in a pragmatic way. Hopefully that answers.
A lot different than ending the war on drugs, though.
Well, I wouldn't say so, because if you decriminalize cannabis and all they're going to do is get a ticket out of it, that changes the entire structure of how the military has been, the police have been militarized, and the number of people that are being sent to prison or sent to jail. Commonwealth Attorney Anthony Bell up in Hampton just a few months ago said, I've got so many cannabis possession charges, I don't have enough prosecutors to prosecute these. So either give me 2 new prosecutors or I'm not trying these cases because I have serious murders and other serious crimes to take care of. Guess what they did? They agreed to give him 2 new prosecutors at the tune of $60,000 apiece. Those are taxpayer dollars. So now he got what he asked for tongue-in-cheek. He's now got 2 more prosecutors to try cannabis possession charges instead of saving taxpayers $120,000 a year. That's a choice that is up to the people, and that's where I stand. But I think that's a good start on ending the war on drugs, because honestly, we look at what's happened over the last 30 years, they've been attacking the supply side of this like whack-a-mole. And we see the militarization of the police going after drug dealers. If you send all those resources to prevention, education, and treatment and shrink the demand side, the dealers will go away because they won't be making as much money. Cut it in half, and how many dealers do you have left? Probably half or less. So that's the start of ending the war on drugs.
That's one drug. Mr. Jones, what is your feeling?
I mean, certainly we've had a long history of drugs in this country. You know, the war on drugs to me is a term that's fairly outdated. I haven't really heard it very often until very recently. But I'm certainly, I come from a family of law enforcement. Drugs are bad. That's not something that I would like to have my children messing around with, whether it's marijuana, cocaine, or anything higher. I mean, you've seen how the drugs have become more and more intensified. I certainly support diverted state money to making sure that we keep our streets clean and safe. We want to live in safe communities and vibrant communities and strong communities. For those people who have been victims of drug abuse and drug overdose, these substance abuse problems, certainly we want to make sure that we are helping them recover, rehabilitate them. Virginia and Norfolk in particular has a drug court system, which I think is perfect, perfect diversionary measure, which we use in the circuit court here, where instead of going to jail, you are sort of on your own recognizance, and you come in for check-ins. It's almost a supervised probation. I think we are on the right path. I certainly think that it seems as if the drugs are getting stronger and stronger and stronger. I'm sure you saw in the paper the other week that there is this new product out there called Gray Death, which is a heroin, sort of heroin and steroids. So, I don't think we need to take money away from making sure that that isn't on our streets. I think we've got a lot of work to do, and it's a community-based approach, but I don't think that we need to take any money particularly away from getting that stuff off our streets.
Specific to marijuana, what's your stance?
Look, I think that we are making great strides in that. I think it is a conversation that is ongoing, that needs to happen at the state level. I think you've seen other states that address this, whether it's decriminalization or commercialization of it. Every other state that has addressed it has done it through a ballot referendum. You give it to the people. In Virginia, I don't know if you know this, it is incredibly hard to put an issue on the ballot, to have us vote. It has to pass both houses of the General Assembly and be signed by the governor to get on the ballot. I'd like to see us reform that process so we make it easier to put issues like that to the people. Because 140 people, yeah, we represent the voices of Virginia, but oftentimes it's not always in lockstep. So.
Any other questions? Thank you all both very much. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll do a real quick business meeting. Mr. Secretary, minutes and
Minutes are in the current edition of the newsletter, and we have some extra copies right up here next to that laundry basket. Thank you. If you need a copy, there's some up there, but
is there a second? All in favor of approving the minutes as written, raise your hand. Opposed? Motion carried, minutes are approved. Okay, our treasurer could not be here tonight. You'll find his treasurer's report on the tables. We had a beginning balance of $11,591.15, revenue of $180.22, and expenses of $1,517.59, with a checking balance of $10,253.78. Does anyone have any questions? Okay. The media chair could not be here. I understand that from Mary Hormel that we do need someone to deliver newsletters on New Jersey Avenue. If anyone is interested in taking that on, please let Mary know or contact the media chair. Membership chair.
Oh, it's me. We have about 140 members right now. The membership is $10 per year, $5 per year if you're 65 or older. It runs from January 1st to December 31st. So if we do take a vote, you have to be a member. So even if we have a month left of the fiscal year, our fiscal year, they still have to become a member to vote. So if anyone wants to be a member, I have applications here. I take checks, money orders, cash, whatever. Okay.
Crime prevention.
I guess one thing is look out for the newsletter, of course, and also on Nextdoor. I gave some links for how we can report if the city streetlights are out. We got darker times ahead of us here with the fall coming, and we got trick-or-treaters coming up here. So I've set a goal, everybody just take a look on your street. If everybody could just go out one evening and look around your street and see if the streetlight is operating correctly or not, and if not, just look at the links on the article and then what I post on Nextdoor, and then just report it. And then if you can, just let me know, hey, yeah, on New Jersey Avenue, there was one out. So I can just kind of keep tally. So far, no one's responded to that, but I know it's, yeah.
What you do?
No,
I know that if your streetlights out, they have so many days to respond to fix it, but when they put the paper sign on there, it says underground, no repair required. Is there a time limit when that has to be done? Because sometimes those will go on for years.
I can find out. I have no idea. But yeah, I can imagine.
I reported one. It took about 2 weeks.
For the one that had the paper on it that says underground repair?
The paper was on there in a few days, and then it was last week and a half or so.
Would they, when you reported it, would they kind of close it out and update you, like, hey?
Yeah, I reported on Buffett Cares, the
Yeah.
I got an update as soon as they assigned it out. And then I got an update when it was.
Okay.
I know the ones along the waterfront because they're underground wiring,
Yeah.
during floods, it's just
Yeah.
a bad system, but.
Yeah. So that's one thing, and there's also a link on the article for Norfolk's trick-or-treater requirements, or whatever you want to call it. Just take a look at that, some general safety tips and stuff, so we'll be here soon. That's it.
Community improvement?
Nothing in particular to report, but may I talk about this October? Sure. Most of you know this laundry basket up in the corner here, we're collecting socks to help Lydia Roper Home. Lydia Roper Home is collecting socks up until October 27th to provide to the homeless. And we're helping with that effort. If you have socks, please put them in the basket. If you've already done that, thank you very much. If you have socks after tonight or you want to provide some, you can take them to the Lydia Roper Home. It is at 127 East 40th Street. It's over in Riverview. Real easy to find. You just go right up to the front door and open the door. People there are extremely friendly and they're very helpful. And just tell them you've got socks and they'll know exactly what you want. We are going to take those over to the home as well. And it's on October 27th. And please donate if you can.
See, Audrey's not here with environmental.
She'll be at the board meeting.
Pardon me?
She'll probably be at the board meeting.
Oh, good, good. Do you have anything?
I just want to thank everybody for coming out and both candidates for coming out. Pretty awesome to see everyone trying to get involved in the civic. This past 2 months, we've had really good turnout.
Let's see. Old business. I don't know how many of you all made it to any of the Riverview rally events yesterday. They had a 1 mile run first thing in the morning. I understand they had about 75 people that attended that. They also had, of course, the Riverview Village Days over here in the park. They had the dedication for the new sign that's going to be going up at the foot of the Granby Street Bridge in the median. Unfortunately, they're having some issues with water. Lots and lots of groundwater. So they have to resolve that before they can put the sign up, but they're hoping to do that in the next few weeks. And they had a very nice turnout for the dedication yesterday. We had the mayor and city council members and yeah. So that was very nice. And it was nice to see people there who had been very instrumental in the Riverview Village Business Association from its beginning there to be recognized for their efforts. So that was very nice as well. And there was also the art walk, which I'm not sure how much anyone got out to see. We did have a good rainstorm there in the middle.
My property, my niece was presenting at my house, and she's actually living there right now, so it was legit. But she, and it was, the first couple of hours, it was kind of wet, but after it took a break, there was pretty good foot traffic. She actually did fairly well.
That's great. Yeah. That's great. That's the art walk is one of those unique things to our two neighborhoods that is just such a benefit for those of us who enjoy the art and enjoy getting out, seeing our neighborhood.
Betsy was at 111 Art. She sold 4, so she's happy.
I bet. That's wonderful.
She has some good cookies too, Jack.
Yeah, I got a few that were left.
Does anyone have any new business?
I do.
Yes, sir.
Hey, I'm Mark Stevens, and sorry about the late getting in here. We did get in at 6:30, but that was just to help with a couple people, so I do apologize about that. But with taking over Eggleston, which I love as an organization, but same thing, I didn't know all the services that they provide. We did volunteer yesterday to help out. I did get to talk to Congressman Scott for a little while, and some of his aides there. And there really is a big push for Riverview to kind of slow down as you go towards Norfolk and do that type of stuff. Just try to encourage everybody to shop local when you can, whether just enjoying the area and going out for a walk, taking bike lanes and stuff like that. It's a good idea. Village Days is a great opportunity. That's actually one of the store owners, Dave, pays for that permit, so it's free to all the vendors. So if you do get a chance to go out and do that, there's only 3 more left for the year. I know that the meeting's been going on for a long time, so I'll keep it short. But Eggleston will be selling our Christmas trees in December, but before that, we do actually landscaping, not just cutting yards. So we do mulching and pruning and planting and all that type of stuff as well. So if you can support us or support our associates coming out there, we do a quality job. We do have our foreman and not only landscapers, but they're also qualified direct support personnel to help out our associates, and we appreciate all the help that you give us already and help the community to fund the rest of this as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you. We very much appreciate it as an opportunity. We love the dog.
Yes.
Dog shop and
Yes, and we're actually going to have grooming days open on November 1st. There was an outreach, so we'll still be doing all the pet walking and dog sitting and pet sitting and that type of stuff. But we're also going to have grooming days partner come in and actually provide grooming services and a lot of other professionalism as well. So we didn't have before that. So trying to expand our area as well. So if you have a dog that needs grooming, you have to do it first. Twice. Thanks.
Okay, anything else? If not, I think we'll adjourn. Thank you very much.